It's no coincidence that Isaac Newton is considered one of the greatest scientists in human history. His groundbreaking discoveries, such as the Law of Universal Gravitation, the three laws of motion, calculus, and many other inventions, laid the foundation for modern physics and mathematics. Beyond his scientific achievements, Newton was also known as a wise philosopher and a reformer who made major contributions to England's monetary system in the 17th century. Albert Einstein, the genius of modern physics, once described Newton as a profoundly solitary and assured intellect, while renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson called him the most complete scientist in history. So what made the English scientist Isaac Newton truly great? Join Mysteries Beyond the Veil as we uncover the life and legacy of this legendary figure in the segments to come. A lonely childhood and a peculiar personality. To describe Isaac Newton's childhood, two words come to mind: tiny and lonely. Born in 1642 in Woolsthorpe, England, Newton came into the world under challenging circumstances. He was premature and so frail that no one believed he would survive. His father had passed away before he was born, and not long after, his mother remarried and left him in the care of his grandmother. Yet Newton defied the odds. Despite his fragile beginnings, he grew up without suffering any serious illness. It wasn't until the age of 12 that he began formal schooling, much later than most children his age. The school environment was harsh, filled with corporal punishment and strict discipline, even for students from noble families. Many believe that these early hardships, along with the lack of parental love, shaped Newton into a quiet, withdrawn individual who kept his distance from the noise of the world, a personality trait that stayed with him for life. As a child, Newton often isolated himself, creating intricate toys and mechanical models. He built mouse-powered windmills, water clocks, and sundials. On one occasion, he terrified his entire village by flying a homemade kite lit with a lantern. Many thought it was a ghost in the sky. Every penny he had went into buying tools: hammers, saws, chisels, anything he could use to build. Thanks to this, Newton developed excellent hands-on skills and a sharp, creative mind from an early age. Academically, however, he was an average or even below average student. His small stature made him an easy target for bullies. But with a fierce sense of pride, Newton chose not to fight back physically. Instead, he focused on surpassing his classmates intellectually, eventually rising to the top of his class. This was his first major turning point, using intellect instead of violence to overcome adversity. At age 15, Newton graduated from grammar school and returned home. His mother, now widowed again, hoped he would take over the family business. But Newton had no interest in trade. When assigned to sell goods at the Grantham market, he handed the task to a servant and instead slipped away to a local apothecary to read and solve math problems. His obsession with mathematics was so intense, he could spend hours absorbed in numbers and formulas. Fortunately, Newton's uncle and his former teacher, Henry Stokes, recognized his exceptional talent. They convinced his mother to allow him to continue his studies, a decision that would change the course of history. On June 5, 1661, at the age of 17, Isaac Newton was admitted to Trinity College, part of the University of Cambridge. There, he steadily advanced through every academic rank, from student to fellow and eventually to professor at just 27 years old. Cambridge became the cradle of Newton's genius, the place where his brilliance truly began to shine. It was here that many of his most groundbreaking scientific achievements were born, milestones that would forever transform the worlds of physics, mathematics, and beyond. The great achievements of Newton. Isaac Newton wasn't the first to uncover the mysteries of the universe. His discoveries were built on centuries of ancient knowledge that came before him. But what made Newton truly revolutionary was his ability to systematize and expand that knowledge in ways the world had never seen. His work sparked a new era of scientific breakthroughs, laying the foundation for countless fields to come. One of his most profound contributions was the creation of new mathematical tools. At the time, mathematics lacked the power to describe complex motion. Through talent and relentless persistence, Newton developed calculus, specifically differential and integral calculus. Differential calculus allows us to calculate how things change, known today as derivatives. It helps determine the instantaneous velocity of a moving object, or the rate of change in population, temperature, profit, and more. Integral calculus does the opposite. It helps us add up those changes. It calculates the area under a curve, the distance traveled from velocity, the volume of irregular objects, or the total profit or cost over time. Together, these two branches of calculus became powerful tools that could describe the motion of planets, predict the paths of objects, and unlock the secrets of the physical world. They laid the groundwork for modern physics, engineering, economics, and even artificial intelligence. Anyone who's ever studied calculus knows it's no walk in the park. And yet, Newton invented it from scratch, rewriting the language of science for generations to come. Before Newton, science mostly focused on describing natural phenomena, but without a structured, unified theory behind it. Newton changed everything. He revolutionized science by introducing solid, testable theories and a system of precise mathematical formulas that could explain how the universe works. His laws were so accurate that even today, NASA still uses them to calculate the trajectories of spacecraft. Even Albert Einstein, the father of the theory of relativity, acknowledged that Newton had laid an irreplaceable foundation for science. Newton's three laws of motion: inertia, an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon; force and acceleration; and action and reaction. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Explained how objects move not just on Earth, but across the cosmos. These principles became the bedrock of physics, engineering, and modern science as we know it. Newton didn't just study the universe, he gave it rules. The Law of Universal Gravitation legend has it that Newton's idea of gravity came to him after witnessing a falling apple. One day, as he watched an apple drop from a tree, a simple but profound question struck him. Why did the apple fall straight to the ground? Why not sideways or upward? After days of deep reflection, Newton arrived at a groundbreaking insight. There must be an invisible force pulling objects toward each other. This was the birth of the concept of gravity. Newton realized that the same force that caused the apple to fall was also responsible for the moon orbiting the Earth and the planets revolving around the sun. This led to his formulation of the Law of Universal Gravitation, a force that acts between all objects with mass, no matter how far apart they are. This discovery laid the foundation for modern astronomy and opened the door to incredible achievements, from launching satellites to sending spacecraft into deep space. Gravity was no longer just an everyday mystery. It became one of the keys to unlocking the universe. Optics. Newton was the first to build a reflecting telescope, using curved mirrors instead of lenses to gather and focus light. This innovation made telescopes more compact, while reducing the distortion and blurring that plagued earlier designs. Thanks to Newton, astronomers could observe the night sky with greater clarity and precision than ever before. But that wasn't all. Newton also disproved the old belief that white light was pure and uniform. Through a series of experiments with prisms, he demonstrated that white light is actually a blend of many colors, laying the foundation for the science of color and optics. In addition to his legendary laws and theories, Newton wrote several monumental works, including Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, his groundbreaking work that redefined physics; The Method of Fluxions, introducing new techniques in calculus; and Optics, a detailed study on light, color, and optical phenomena. These writings didn't just advance science, they reshaped the way humans understand the world around them. Why is Newton considered one of the greatest scientists in human history? Even if we look only at his scientific works, Isaac Newton would still stand tall as a genius of the highest order. But what truly sets him apart and earns him lasting admiration is his extraordinary mastery across multiple fields: mathematics, physics, philosophy, astronomy, politics, and economics. What makes Newton's genius even more remarkable is the historical context in which he lived. During his lifetime, England was undergoing massive political, economic, and social transformations. It was the era of the English Revolution, when a scattered island nation began rising as a global maritime power. Capitalism was taking root, and a new class of intellectuals and bourgeois thinkers was beginning to challenge the dominance of feudalism. This period of upheaval shaped not only the destiny of a nation, but also created fertile ground for brilliant minds like Newton to thrive. In many ways, Newton wasn't just a genius, he was a man of his time, someone whose brilliance helped define the very age he lived in. As noted in the book Newton, The Man and His Discoveries, understanding Newton's personality and genius requires an understanding of his historical environment. The identity of the English people was forming, and so was the unique character of Newton himself. His personal story cannot be fully understood without the backdrop of the time that shaped him. One fascinating anecdote reveals Newton's wisdom beyond science. A young man named Aston at Cambridge once wrote to Newton, asking for advice before traveling abroad. In his reply, Newton didn't speak of equations or experiments. Instead, he encouraged Aston to carefully observe the customs, art, commerce, and politics of the nations he visited. He emphasized the importance of studying tax systems and economic operations, and even advised the young traveler to keep a journal of everything he learned. Some biographers view the letter as lighthearted advice from a younger Newton, but others see it as a reflection of Newton's broad, practical, and forward-thinking mind, especially in an era when European nations were often at odds and few scientists paid attention to such worldly matters. Whether through his monumental theories or his thoughtful reflections, Newton showed that true genius is not confined to a single discipline. It's the ability to see the world clearly, ask the right questions, and shape the future across every field of human knowledge. Newton and the currency reform that changed England. Newton also left a profound mark on the economic landscape of England through his leadership in one of the country's most important monetary reforms. At the time, England was still using outdated coin minting methods dating back to the 14th century. Coins were made by cutting metal with scissors, hammering it into shape, and stamping designs by hand. Because these coins relied on manual craftsmanship, they were easy to counterfeit. Even after the government introduced horse-powered coin presses, counterfeit coins flooded the market, destabilizing trade and sparking widespread disputes affecting everyone from peasants to nobles. In the midst of this chaos, Newton, with his sharp scientific mind and uncompromising logic, stepped in to take charge of the monetary reform. In just 2 years, he helped implement a new standardized minting system that made coins far more accurate and nearly impossible to forge. This move restored public trust, stabilized the economy, and boosted trade across the nation. Though the country was grateful for his efforts, Newton's work also made him enemies. Some tried to bribe, manipulate, or even threaten his life. But Newton remained resolute and incorruptible, staying true to his principles and continuing to devote his life to what he saw as his true mission, the pursuit of knowledge through science. Newton and the secrets of alchemy. Beyond his scientific and economic contributions, Newton also immersed himself in a lesser-known passion: alchemy. Living much of his later life in solitude, he spent countless sleepless nights experimenting with mysterious formulas, mixing chemicals, and recording every result with obsessive detail. He was deeply fascinated by the legendary Philosopher's Stone, a mythical substance said to turn base metals into gold and grant eternal life. Though many today view alchemy as superstition, Newton saw it differently. For him, it was a quest to understand the true nature of matter and energy, a hands-on, intuitive approach to unraveling the secrets of the universe. His dedication to alchemy revealed another side of Newton, a man who didn't just seek truth through equations, but also through practical experimentation, no matter how obscure or mystical it seemed. A brilliant mind, but far from perfect. For all his brilliance and unmatched intellect, Isaac Newton was still human, with flaws of his own. Though he mastered countless fields, he wasn't someone people naturally gravitated toward. In fact, throughout his life, Newton was known for being cold, distant, and authoritarian. He struggled as a professor at the University of Cambridge. His lectures were poorly attended, often with only a handful of students, because it was clear that Newton's true passion lay in research, not teaching. As a teacher, he was stern, silent, and emotionally distant, making his classroom a place most students chose to avoid despite their admiration for his intellect. Newton's perfectionism and domineering personality were most evident in his fierce scientific disputes. He wasn't content with simply proving his theories. He often sought to completely discredit his rivals. One of the most infamous examples was his prolonged feud with Robert Hooke over gravity and optics. Both men claimed priority over key discoveries, and Newton, unwilling to share credit, refused to publish any of his work on optics until after Hooke's death, a vow he kept for years. His combative nature didn't stop there. Newton also clashed with Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz over the invention of calculus. Although both men had made significant contributions independently, Newton was relentless in trying to assert himself as the true inventor. He even used his influence within the Royal Society to undermine Leibniz's reputation. The result? A bitter conflict that damaged the legacies of both men. Perhaps Newton's obsession with control and superiority helped him protect his life's work. But it also isolated him from his peers and made it difficult to form meaningful relationships, even with other great minds of his time. Though Newton was famously rigid and unyielding in his professional life, he also had a gentler, more affectionate side that few people know about. One heartwarming story tells of Newton's special fondness for animals, particularly his beloved cat. Because he often shut all the doors in his home to focus on research, his kitten would meow persistently, unable to get in or out. To solve the problem, Newton had a hole cut into the door, allowing the cat to move freely without disturbing his work. This simple solution is believed by some to be the inspiration for the modern cat flap, now found in homes around the world. Another anecdote reveals Newton's absent-mindedness, a trait common among geniuses. On one occasion, he invited a friend over for dinner, but so absorbed was he in his research that he completely lost track of time. The friend, not wanting to interrupt, ate alone and left the bones of the meal on the table. When Newton finally emerged from his study, he apologized and looked down at the remains on the table. Thinking they were his, he remarked, "Oh, I thought I hadn't eaten yet, but I must have already." His friend, still in the room, burst out laughing. In another instance, while preparing breakfast, Newton reportedly dropped his pocket watch into a pot of boiling water, thinking it was an egg. Realizing the mistake, he simply smiled and returned to his work. These light-hearted stories show us that even the most brilliant minds can be forgetful, quirky, and deeply human, and that perhaps that's part of what makes their genius so enduring. A life devoted entirely to science. Isaac Newton never married, and according to historical accounts, he never engaged in a sexual relationship with any woman. His emotional distance and reclusive nature led many to speculate about his personal life. Some have suggested he may have been homosexual, while others have theorized that his midlife nervous breakdown and absent-mindedness were due to lifelong celibacy. But in truth, these remain uncertain assumptions, and Newton himself seemed unbothered by such concerns. He devoted his entire energy to scientific discovery, focusing solely on unlocking the secrets of the universe. And because of this single-minded dedication, he reaped the rewards of extraordinary achievement. As the years passed, Newton's name echoed far and wide. He lived in quiet comfort, respected and admired by his peers. He held absolute authority within the Royal Society and maintained his influence in physics thanks to the support of contemporary scientists. He became wealthy and was cared for by his niece in his later years. But his health gradually declined. Overworked and fatigued, he became increasingly forgetful and weary. On the night of March 20th, 1727, into the early hours of March 21st, Isaac Newton passed away, leaving behind a colossal legacy of scientific thought. His work paved the way for the inventions of Lomonosov, Franklin, and the breakthroughs in electricity and physics by the modern giants who came after him. Newton was laid to rest in Westminster Abbey, the resting place of England's greatest minds. On his tomb, a Latin inscription reads, "Let mortals rejoice that so great an ornament of the human race has existed." Conclusion. The legacy of Isaac Newton laid the foundation for many of the greatest scientific advancements in human history. Today, we continue to benefit from his contributions, from the basic laws of physics that explain the world around us to the technologies that power our modern lives. Though centuries have passed, Newton's discoveries still guide the journey of science and continue to inspire new generations to explore the universe and unlock the secrets of knowledge. He didn't just change the way we see the world, he gave us the tools to understand it, shape it, and reach beyond it. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you found it interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next mysteries waiting beyond the veil. See you in the next mysterious journey.